Charles Hoskinson is warning that the Clarity Act could give crypto a weaker rulebook than no bill at all. The Cardano regulation fight is not about whether rules are needed. It is about whether a rushed framework can lock the industry into rules written without enough technical input, budget, or agency coordination. Hoskinson's concern is that clarity can be harmful if the structure is wrong. A vague legal environment is difficult, but a bad detailed law can be harder to escape. Hoskinson's first objection is process. He argues serious legislation should be built with the affected industry before the public vote becomes a formality. In his criticism, crypto builders were not systematically consulted, while political insiders and donors had more access to the process. That matters because the law would govern products that are technical, global, and still changing quickly. If builders are not in the room early, the final bill can solve the wrong problem. That is a process argument with practical consequences. If the wrong voices shape the draft, agencies may inherit a mandate that looks clear on paper and breaks when applied to real protocols. The second problem is the CFTC mandate. The Clarity Act would hand much of crypto oversight to the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. On paper, that can sound cleaner than leaving everything with the SEC. In practice, Hoskinson argues the CFTC would need new staff, new expertise, and a much larger budget. Without that capacity, rulemaking can drift for years. Delay is not neutral when the next administration may control the final rules. The budget issue is not administrative trivia. If an agency gets responsibility without resources, the result can be slow guidance, inconsistent supervision, and uncertainty that lasts longer than the law's supporters expected. The security versus commodity question is the hardest technical split. Some digital assets behave like commodities, but yield-bearing stablecoins can look more like investment contracts. Hoskinson's alternative is a separate digital security category inside securities law, built for blockchain-native disclosure. That would avoid forcing every instrument into old boxes. For Cardano regulation, the bigger point is classification. If the category is wrong, the compliance path becomes unstable before companies even launch. Yield-bearing stablecoins show the problem clearly. They can promise a return, which looks investment-like, but they also sit near payment and settlement functions that old categories were not built to handle. He also points to NIST as a missing technical referee. NIST studies cryptography, blockchain, CBDC design, and procurement standards for the U.S. government. A stronger framework could use technical standards to help the SEC and CFTC resolve disputes. That would be less political than letting two agencies fight over definitions after the law passes. The current criticism is that the bill creates authority first and technical arbitration later, if at all. A technical referee would not solve politics, but it could narrow factual disputes. Crypto rules need definitions that engineers, lawyers, and regulators can all apply consistently. The next signal is whether the bill gains real funding, technical review, and industry participation before it advances. If lawmakers fix those layers, the Clarity Act could become more workable. If they do not, Hoskinson's warning stays sharp. A bad crypto law can remove courtroom ambiguity and replace it with rules written by whichever administration finishes the process. That is why the Cardano regulation debate now centers on structure, not slogans. The practical market consequence is legal ground. If the current ambiguity disappears, companies may lose the courtroom argument that existing law never gave them a fair map. That is why the fight is about machinery, budget, standards, deadlines, and who writes the final rules.